This trip will take us up to the Northern Tablelands in northern New South Wales. We'll leave home and head north on the Pacific Highway to Wauchope for a couple of nights before heading across the mountains using the Oxley Highway to stop at Apsley Falls, a campsite about 20 kilometres to the east of Walcha. From there we'll head northwest to join the New England Highway up to Armidale for what ended up being nearly a week because of bad weather. Then we head east along Waterfall Way to the Wollomombi campground for a couple of days before continuing on to Ebor and camping at Native Dog Creek. Then it was on to Guyra and north along New England Highway to Tenterfield through the rain. Here we did some bushwalks, and then because of the weather we headed back over the mountains to Casino using the Buckner Highway. At Casino we did trips to Kyogle and Lismore while waiting for the flooding at Grafton to drop so we could continue down to Coffs Harbour and then back home. Day 1 saw us drive to Wauchope and stop at the showgrounds. And we got a good campsite. Next morning we walked down into town to have a look around and to get a nice coffee at this cafe in the park. After lunch we drove the 15 kilometres south to Burrowan State Forest for a short loop walk to see the old bottle butt tree. She sure is big. We headed west along the 412 bends of the Oxley Highway over the mountains to Apsley Falls, where we set up camp in one of our favourite campgrounds. We enjoy walking along this rim walk to the lookout, and then we walk over the suspension bridge and around to the Oxley lookout. Now we've done a whole video on the details of that. This time the mother magpie was showing the kids how to break into a plastic bag for food. This walk is easy with great views into the gorge, and it's easy to see how the landslip lookout got its name. There is a monument to John Oxley passing here in 1818, and unfortunately the scenic stairway is closed for renovations, but this lookout is still pretty good. Then we continued our walk along the Oxley Walk across the suspension bridge to the Oxley lookout. Not a lot of water going down, but over the next 2 weeks we'll get a lot of rain and that will cause flooding on the east coast. About 20 kilometres to the east of Apsley Falls is the Tia Falls, and from the car park we'll walk to the gorge lookout and then retrace our steps and then follow along the top of the gorge until we reach the bridge over the creek. We'll follow that along the edge of the gorge on the western side until we reach the Tiara or Tiara lookout. Here we are at the gorge lookout at the start of the walk. As we retrace our steps, we arrive at the main falls lookout. Now these really are nice falls. Soon we arrive at the junction with the other trek from the car park and head off along the Tiara trek and across the creek. This trek up to the Tiara lookout is really easily done and it's well made. Our next stop was the Armidale. This is a lovely small university and farming city in the New England area. Again, we elected to stay at the showgrounds. And funny enough, the caravan that pulled up next to us happened to be one of our neighbours from 20 years ago. The Visitor Information Centre had a brochure, a map to show some of the interesting buildings. There's a nice education museum with some old school buildings that have been brought there from around the area. And the railway station, it reflects the prosperity of this region. And of course, to a city like this, there's plenty of air services. The following day, the weather was better than forecast, so we drove the 20 kilometers to Dangars Falls to look at the falls and also do the 5 kilometer return McDirty's Lookout walk. We walked around to the lookout near the campsite, which gave a really nice view of the falls. Another lookout gave nice views of the gorge. And then we walked down to the falls, looked down, lookout. A little further on, there's still more great views. And then we headed up towards McDirty's Lookout. The trek, for the most part, was in good order. But this lookout feels very remote. Ham is about 9 kilometres from Armidale and was once part of the water supply, but now it's a recreational area and a good spot for a picnic. We thought about putting in the kayaks, but it's a bit too small, so we decided to do the circuit walk instead. We soon discovered that the loop walk was closed, so we decided we'd do the 4K there and return. Time to turn back. On the Sunday morning we packed up and drove the 40 kilometres to Wollomombi Falls campground, yet another great national parks campground. In the afternoon we took a walk to Edgar's Lookout and then along the road to the main car park to look at the main lookout. Edgar's Lookout gives good views down the gorge, and we were actually surprised with the numbers of people at the main car park, but no one was at the main lookout. Wow, how about this? 2 waterfalls for the price of 1. The rain started and continued for 24 hours, so on the Monday afternoon we decided to take a look at the falls and also walk to Check's Lookout. Boy, was it different today. What had been a little stream yesterday was now a raging torrent. From Check's Lookout we could see the Chandler viewpoint, so we decided to continue on up through the native dog fence. We could also see this waterfall that wasn't there yesterday, and we could also see a long way down the gorge. On the Tuesday morning, after we'd packed up, we decided to do the Wollomombi walking track. This is the one that runs from the picnic area and car park to the Chandler's Falls lookout. And the first lookout you come to gives great views over the gorge. After about 1 kilometre, we arrive at the stairs leading to the bridge over the river. And after another kilometre, we arrived at the Chandler Lookout. Our return, we drove the 50 kilometres to Native Dog Creek campground. This whole area was burned out in the 2019-2020 bushfires, but it's starting to recover well. New toilets have been built, a new cover over the woods door. But unfortunately, all the tracks are still closed. Strangely, we were the only people staying there. It was a wet and windy morning, but we decided to drive from our campsite into Ebor and then go look at the falls. Given the weather and all of the viewing points were closed for repair, it was a bit disappointing. We couldn't even get near the lower falls viewing area. The rain had set in and there was flooding all along the east coast, so we decided not to overnight in Gyre as we had planned, but we ended up lunching at Glen Innes and then we drove on to Tenterfield. Tenterfield's another one of those nicely situated country towns with some interesting architecture. In more recent times, this old saddlery has become famous because of the Peter Allen song about the Tenterfield saddler. Here at Tenterfield, we again stopped at the showgrounds. We moved up here to the higher ground from where we had been down by the creek because of the threat of flooding. The weather on the Saturday was good and we wanted to climb Bull Rock, which is about 30k to the north, but we end up having a little detour on the way. We continued on to Bull Rock National Park and decided that we'd use the Bungona walk up to join the summit walk, which we'd follow up to the top, and then on the way back down we would take the rock face walk. This is well classed as a grade 5 walk, very, very steep. Again, this whole area had been burned out in the 2019-2020 bushfires, but it was starting to recover well and the walk up was interesting. We came to the junction with the summit walk and we followed that up to the top. The walk down was as steep as we'd been expecting, and surprisingly, at the bottom we met one of our neighbours. It's a small world. We then drove over to Boonoo Boonoo National Park and took a short walk down to the falls. Then we took a short detour round to the pools. It was still raining on a Sunday, so when it stopped, I took a stroll around the gardens next to the showgrounds. This monument at Showground commemorates the first ever camp drafting competition held here in 1885. With a forecast of up to 90 millimeters of rain here on Tuesday, we decided that on the Monday we would drive the Boxner Highway to Casino and wait there to see when the flooding might allow us to get back to the coast. It's the first caravan park we stopped at, and the expected rain arrived, making everything very soggy. The river was running several meters above its normal level. On the left side you can see some people swimming. I just can't believe that. We had a few days to wait for the flooding at Grafton to recede, so we drove the 30k to Kyogle to have a coffee and look at the Art Deco buildings. By the Friday morning we could get through to Grafton and on to Sawtell, just south of Coffs Harbour. We had to use the old bridge and some side streets to get through to Pacific Highway. There was some sign of flooding, but it had receded, so the cleanup could start. We set up at the caravan at Sawtell for the weekend, realising that we could now get home. And the weekend being nice, a paddle in the kayak seemed like a nice finish. Another wonderful month in the mountains.